Hey, I'm Travis.
And I'm Adele.
And we are The Noble Marriage. We hope that through our channel, you will be inspired and motivated so that your marriage will be all that God created it to be.
Hey friends, welcome back to our channel. This video is video number 2 in a 2-part series where Pure Victory Podcast reached out to interview us. And in the first video, we share a lot about our story and the impacts of pornography and infidelity and how that impacted our marriage and individually. So if you haven't seen that video yet, you're gonna wanna click the link that I put above here so that you can go back and watch that first. This one is all about how we use our story to coach other couples in the same things that we walked through. So let's listen in.
Welcome back to the Pure Victory Podcast with Matt and Braden, and part 2 with Travis and Adele, and out in Greenville, South Carolina, and Parents to Haven. And what a great ministry they have, The Noble Marriage. You can find them on YouTube at The Noble Marriage and Instagram, The Noble Marriage, thenoblemarriage.com, and they've got a transformational course that you can take and get coaching from them too. What they do with couples is so powerful and so good. And it's been so good getting to know you guys, Travis and Adele. And for you listeners, if you didn't hear the story last week, go back and listen to their story of transformation. If you're stuck, if you're having a lot of trauma, if you've got addiction in your marriage and you're just kind of feeling hopeless, their story will give you hope. And sometimes hope is just what we need when we have nothing else to get through. And so Travis and Adele, we're excited to talk about just what you've learned and how you coach people and getting things out, getting secrets out, being honest, learning to be honest in marriage. So thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for welcoming us back.
Yeah, we love your story, and we love the aspect that you're serving together, using your marriage, allowing God to use your marriage to bless others. I think a lot of couples don't get that our marriage isn't just for us. God wants to use our marriage and to have purpose in our marriage, whatever that looks like. Don't necessarily have to be like you guys, but hey, God has a purpose for our marriages, and you're using that right now to help couples, so many couples. So thank you guys. And so this week, we'd love to kind of get you putting on your coaching hats, so to speak. We heard your story, and there's so many marriages out there that I think could probably relate to components of it, maybe not all of it, but aspects of it. And I wanted to go back to maybe the beginning of your story, and maybe even in your courtship dating aspect. I know, Adele, you talked about red flags a little bit. Mm-hmm. Some of the things you were seeing, maybe Travis, you saw that a little bit too. But maybe at that journey, because there's a lot of couples that are at that point too that listen. What do couples do with those red flags? Why is it important to see them and maybe get some coaching and help to unpack them? Because maybe we can't do it on our own, right? So maybe even using your own story as kind of a metric here. Talk about that. Why is that important?
Yeah.
So I was thinking there's a lot of hiding that goes along with that and secrecy and.
I'll jump in.
Man, it just completely lost me.
I'll jump in. So we've just recognized that the lack of communication that we had prior to getting married, as well as after we got married, was our main issue. Because I believe that had we set the groundwork and the foundation for good communication, we would have been able to communicate about red flags that were showing up. And I think the secrecy is what kept us from being able to communicate on that level, even though we didn't know how. So it was more like we just avoided it. And so we had a premarital counselor. That's the other thing is I think back to that time and I'm like, what did he teach us about marriage? I remember learning he didn't want any more children in our counseling.
Oh, man.
And not only that, I had the thought of I'll change him later about that rather than just having communication about it.
Yeah.
And so I think it's just so important that you fully know the person that you're going to marry because you are spending the rest of your life with them. Yeah. And if they are showing red flags in your dating relationship, they will absolutely show up in your marriage also. It's just a matter of not if, but when.
That's good. That's good. One of the red flags is this right here, the cell phone. I did not want you to ever look at this or touch this. And that's one of those things where it's still just another secrecy, another hiding thing that just does not have a place in a marriage. I agreed, I made a covenant with you that we would just become one and what's mine is yours and what's yours is mine and
we complete each other.
That we would be together and that but that what it doesn't mean is I can have hiding and secrecy on the side. It does not mean that.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think you legit tried for several years to not have secrecy because, I mean, I remember you saying you wanted a different relationship with me multiple times, and I didn't know what that meant. Honestly, I was just like,
Yeah.
okay. And so I think you really gave it your best shot, but there was just so much foothold for the enemy to just, drag you right back into it.
And I didn't know how to communicate. One of the things we teach in our course is how to effectively communicate and listen to understand. And that helps set up a marriage, because I wasn't taught necessarily how to communicate or listen, and you were not either. And so we brought that into our marriage. And when things got tough, either we sweep it under the rug, we argue about it until we can't argue about it anymore, and then sweep it under the rug, or we just avoid. And what specifically would happen to me is, like, I would want to say things to you. I would even want to say positive things or things of value to you. And I had this stopping me in my throat. Like, the words wouldn't come out. And I was like, want to say things like, I want to say the value you have to me and how much I love you, or like different things like that. And I just could not say it. And I couldn't say it to other people either.
Yeah, we could not.
I'm just thinking of, I'm just thinking of in Genesis 2 where it talks about being naked and unashamed, right? In marriage. And
Yes.
People that are single and excited about sex, they just think about that. But really, it's emotional. That was in our premarital counseling. It was just like, that's not just physical. It's emotional. There's all of the memories, the thoughts, the shame that we have. Something that comes up so often in our ministry is sexual abuse, and people not talking about sexual abuse for decades after it happened. Or they talked about it one time and it was a one-time thing, and the person that they shared with never followed up. And so that just told them, don't talk about it. There's no point. And so we don't necessarily know it, but that develops a pattern in us that when things happen, I don't share. I just keep it. I just suppress it. And that leads into marriage. And so I know, Travis, you said in last week's episode with your story that you were molested as a young guy. And did that play a role in the secrecy, the hiddenness, the not knowing how to communicate? Did that play a role in your marriage? And then a second question to this, how did you overcome the abuse? And once you started to realize that there were hard issues, how did you overcome that?
Yeah, I didn't think it necessarily played a role, but looking back, I can absolutely see how it had a large role in a lot of things. Like, it had a large role in how I viewed
Yourself?
myself, sexual relations, how I view, our intimacy together and what that looks like. And it had a way of like coming up for me of like, I need to hide this and keep it a secret. And it wasn't until we had full disclosure that we kind of talked about this. But I honestly had tried my best to push that and shove that so far down into my memory, I guess, that I just did not want to ever look at it or address it or have anything to do with it at all. And I went through a counselor who helped me unpack that. And that's another thing I love about, one of your ministries is being able to speak. The amnesty hour that you were referring to is because there's so much value in getting things out from between my ears and out of my mouth. And this is what I really want everyone to hear is there is an enemy, and he is real. And he wants you to keep things in between your ears or in isolation, because in isolation, you can become very ineffective and make yourself small, and you're not effective for the kingdom of God. But in a safe environment, and hear me when I say safe, in a safe environment, you can speak things out, and it's in the light. That's what Jesus wants. Jesus wants healing for us, and he wants things in the light. And it's in that I get healing, is speaking things. Because when we speak it, it always loses value. Oh.
Also, I just want to throw this out there.
That was good.
It was good. He had blacked out those experiences. When we were having full disclosure, there was no recognition that was even playing in the background.
Yeah.
He had to go through certain counseling to reopen his mind to even remember the incidences that had happened. And I just think that is so amazing about our brains. However, it's not good for us, because then we are not able to actually fully deal with it. And so I remember the day that you had come home from counseling and you had just gotten present to what had happened to you when you were a kid. And I just watched him really mourn for himself. He was a kid and had no control. And so it was beautiful to watch him discover that as a really a new thing in his life, and be able to address it at the same time with, even though that happened to me and I really remember it now, it's not still happening to me. And a lot of times we live our life, and myself, I will like in my mind, I think things are still happening to me and I live my life that way. And it just keeps us so ineffective and small. And, that's exactly what the enemy wants.
I want to touch on that a little bit more. Thank you for saying that. Like every one of us has a past, a present that's like right now, and we have a future that hopefully, God willing, we'll have. And that's it. I want everyone to like, if you've zoned out, tune into this. When we live our life in our past, like right now is we're present right now. And when we live our life in the past, like those things happen to me and I create some type of value over those things. And I give it some type of value over me, significance over me. I can't help but to take my past into my present. And I can't help but to create my future based on my past. I have to get to the point where, and I really want you guys to hear this, those things, and it may not be sexually assaulted or molested, it may be whatever that is, those things happened, and I'm sorry. I am deeply sorry, because the world is hurting, and you should have never been hurt or abused, and I am really sorry that happened. I want you to hear me say that. And it's not still happening, hopefully. And when it's not still happening, we'll have a choice to let that rest where it is and go into my future and create something brand new. I can absolutely create something brand new without taking that into my future with me.
Well, I think that brings another question that I have out of this is that we think that if we sweep it under the rug because it's past, maybe it's not currently happening anymore, we think it won't affect anything else in our present, what you're talking about, Travis. The weird thing with abuse, though, is that, we've seen this in marriages, is that if it happened to one of us coming into the marriage, now the abuse is in our marriage in the sense that it's affecting our marriage. Yeah. And often we don't see that lived out or played out because we think it's just us. Say, I was the one abused. It's only me. It's my past. We don't realize that we're bringing that into the marriage, so to speak. So there are marriages out there that are in that place where maybe there's abuse. Maybe the other spouse doesn't know yet. Maybe it's been hidden. Maybe there's secrets. Maybe whatever. Or it is out and it hasn't been dealt with. But what would you coach a couple who has abuse in the past? What are some steps that they can take now to address it as a couple? And maybe just speak to that. Like, what would you coach a couple right now that's hearing this and kind of giving them a pathway at least, or some hope of what they can do so that they can thrive in their marriage?
One of the things that we deal with is, we call them thorns. And they're real, it's the root of whatever symptom or behavior is happening. And it's typically some sort of fear. I'm not good enough, or I'm a failure.
I'm unwanted.
I'm unwanted. I'm unworthy. I'm not important. Those are lies from the enemy. And so when we have couples that are going through our course, we deal with the thorns. Because when we can deal with the thorns, then the symptoms start to go away on their own, because they get healing at root level. And so if you're a spouse and you're in an abusive relationship, I would say get help from someone that you trust that can help start coaching you on what to do in that situation. But if it's been in the past of your marriage and you're trying to move forward with it, you've really got to deal with, why was that happening to begin with? And it typically always goes back to childhood. And something that happens to us when we were young and vulnerable and not able to logically think through traumatic events that happened to us. And so, that's what I would say when it comes to a couple who's really trying to move forward is you gotta go back to the root first.
Yeah. And your brain is meant to heal. Our brain is meant to heal from things. It's scientifically proven that it can heal from all kinds of things. And even from, when we create subconscious programs that aren't helpful for us, we can address those in coaching or in counseling and be able to get healing around those things and have a new pathways. Neuroplasticity is real, and you have the ability to transform our mindsets that way too.
Yeah, and something I feel like...
Yeah, it sure is. It's cool.
I was going to say, I just feel like the Spirit's really leading me to say this specifically for some reason. Because I believe that the lust, the impurity, the traumatic events that happened in his childhood, it absolutely affected our sex life. And I think it really impacts the spouse who has no idea about any of the things in the past. And it's like, something's wrong with me. You know, what is wrong with me that our sex life isn't thriving? And that's one of the things that we really talk about, because when there are two people in a marriage who are not whole and complete people, thorns also make us close our hearts. And when our hearts are closed, there's no connection and there's no intimacy there. And so it's literally a transaction. Like, sex is just happening, but there's not a connection. There's not an intimacy, like deep, rich experience. And I want you to know that you have access to that. If you don't have it right now in your marriage, like, find help. Find someone who can help you get to the point of figuring out what are the underlying issues. Because I would say, like, before we really got healed and restored, our sex life was like the thing that I wanted nothing to do with, honestly. I didn't feel wanted, desired, loved, appreciated, and all the things that I feel now. It's a completely different experience when you have two open hearts coming together who are both seeking after being better people and knowing God fully and deeply. You share this amazing space together in sexual intimacy that is like another planet kind of experience. Like, it is amazing. And I feel like every marriage should have that. It's now my favorite part of our marriage. And several years ago, somebody, if they would have asked, I would have been like, there's no way that would happen because of the way it was. And that just should give you hope that if that's what your marriage is like now, there is hope for you that you can have an amazing sex life and desire your spouse in return.
That's a great point, Adele. And I wanted to just jump in quick here. A lot of couples, I mean, with family life, we only hear of, like, I'll get an email or someone will pull me off the stage when I'm speaking and they'll tell me their trauma or their crisis, whatever else. We know by stats and studies that couples only reach out for help typically after 4 years. So you're getting them 4 years of crisis later.
Yeah.
And they haven't dealt with anything. So you're speaking all this right now. Why is it important to not wait that 4 years to get the help you see you need now? Just to speak to that.
I believe that if every couple was set up with really great foundations, like what it takes to have a strong marriage, you can avoid crisis. And circumstances are still going to happen. Life still happens. Like, you can't get away from that. But you now have the tools and the ability to work through anything. And that's the difference of waiting 4 years of not really dealing with the issues. And now we've got bigger issues, to creating that foundation first. And then you can just work through the issues. They never become a crisis. They never become really big issues.
Yeah, suffering is optional. And like, we could absolutely at any point, either premarital or maybe the first hard time in my first year of marriage, or, you know, Dr. Gary Chapman talks about his first year of marriage was bliss because he was still in love. And then he figured out after about the 1 year marriage mark, he was like, who is this woman I married?
He said, I made a mistake.
You know, and so at any point, we could be like, all right, so I need to get some type of help. And, you know, there's something in us, Matt, I believe you said earlier in Genesis, you know, it was around Genesis 3 where Adam and Eve, they have such a great relationship with God, but at some point sin enters the picture and they choose to put fig leaves on, and they choose to hide, and they choose to have fear. And we've been putting fig leaves on ever since. And that's exactly what hiding and secrecy is I need to put a facade up, and so I need to have this up. But I'm telling you, it's false. It's not real. It's not true. And when it's involved in a relationship, if I still choose to have my fig leaves up with you, it is not two becoming one, like it says in the Bible. It's two maintaining their distance and maybe their walls and having some type of fig leaves up. And I need to be able to remove those and be fully transparent, let go of the hiding and secrecy, and really shift my heart. It's a heart issue that I need to shift to be in line with Christ.
And just being fully known. You know, God designed marriage for that one person to fully know you, and vice versa. And it's such a beautiful picture. But we enter marriage like walls up, And I can't let you get too close, because if you get too close, you won't love me. And that's just the lies that we believe about ourselves. And so when we can be fully transparent prior to marriage, and you enter a marriage in that way, you get to be real. Like, how great is it to just be real? Because I wasn't able to do that for years.
Beautiful. So beautiful. I want to ask you one question, probably more so to Travis, you could answer to, just to wrap up here. You talk about
Hey, Matt, sorry to jump in, buddy. Matt?
Fidelity.
Sorry to jump in, man. You're totally breaking up. Adele, Travis, is he breaking up on your end?
Yeah.
Okay, so repeat your question. We couldn't get it.
You can just take over if I'm big.
Okay, yeah, your internet's kind of, I don't know what's going on there. Okay, I'll do you want to yell down what your question was? Because I can ask it. Or put it in the chat.
No, you just finished.
Okay. Yeah, that's such great advice, guys. The importance of bringing those walls down as quickly as we can. I know it takes time, because in marriage, it's a lifetime and a process and a journey together, right? Like we're not perfection day one, nor will we perfection in day 100. But can we not get a little bit better? Can we not grow together and process? And to do that as quickly as we can, even if we feel like, I'm a little bit worried because I'm not sure that my spouse will like me once they learn these things. But how great is it that God's in the center of this? He's working in us. And the fact is that when we bring the walls down, our love for each other actually grows. I found that in my own marriage, because I'm more vulnerable with my wife. She in turn is more vulnerable with me. Our love and our intimacy grows as a couple. Yeah. So I just want to get you guys to speak to hope right now, because there's so many couples out there right now that they don't know what it's going to look like tomorrow for them. Maybe they're at a point where they don't really know if that's going to happen at all. Or there might be a marriage that's maybe just gone through a season of drift, maybe young children, they haven't really connected or been able to connect the way that they once did. What's some hope that you guys can just pass on to couples for their marriages, even if there's crisis, if there's trauma, there's abuse, maybe porn in their marriage? Maybe just speak to the hope that we can have.
I would just say, first of all, God designed marriage, and he wants marriage to work. Yeah. And I think that for me, when I was realizing our marriage is not good, I just cried out to God, help me know what to do, because I just don't know. And I literally watched God do that. And even though we had to go through some really painful parts, God wants your marriage to work. And so leaning to him to say, hey, God, I need your help. And you don't have to wait on your spouse. You can go ahead and start working on, how can I improve me to show up as a better spouse? Because we can't control our spouse, but I do have influence, and I have influence through the way I love him. And when that starts to shift and transform, because God is filling me up with that kind of love, I can't help but influence in a positive way.
That's good.
Do you have anything else?
I don't know if I can add to that. That was really good. Well, I will add this. Jesus was asked, what is the number one commandment? And he said to love God with everything we have and love your neighbor as yourself. And who's your neighbor? My neighbor is going to be anyone, but including you. And in order to do that, I need to follow the last part, and that's love her as myself. And I need to know how to love me. And so that would be a groundwork. I did not know how to love Travis effectively. How in the world can I effectively love you or love God when I don't have it? And so I needed to learn how to take care of myself, how to love myself, how to be whole and complete through Jesus Christ. That way the overflow is going to come into our marriage.
Yeah.
Yeah, so well said. I think let's wrap up there, because that is absolutely hopeful, great advice. Appreciate you, Travis and Adele. Where can we find you? I know you guys mentioned at the beginning, but someone listening, where can we find you guys? And what's your YouTube channel, whatever else, website? Just share that right now.
We would love for you to go subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's The Noble Marriage. And then it's thenoblemarriage.com. And then please also check us out on social media. We've got a Facebook and an Instagram with The Noble Marriage.
Thanks, guys, so much. So appreciate you. Appreciate your hearts.
Thank you
for taking the time. Yes, thank you for being here with us. And for all those listening out there, we hope that was something that just really poured into you and blessed you. Thanks again, everybody, for checking in with us this week, and we will see you next time.
The Adventure Challenge.
Couples edition.
Go to a thrift store and follow these rules. Buy your partner an outfit of your choosing. Minimum 3 items.
Of whose choosing?
Of your choosing.
I get to buy your outfit at a thrift store?
Ah!
So we were reflecting that I have never bought you anything. No, what?
Nothing.
No clothing.
Right.
Nothing clothing.
Nothing.
I think I'm trying to find my wife something very nice.
To wear it, you have no undershirt to go with it, unfortunately. You just would have to wear the sweater vest all by itself.
I would normally say yes, but it's 9-in-1, and I think that's
But it's armless. It's like sleeveless. It's like a tank top.
It is.
We hope you enjoyed this video, and if it made a difference for you in your life, put a comment below. We would love to hear that. That is such an encouragement for us when we get to hear what you get out of our videos. So we look forward to seeing you in the next conversation, and we'll see you then. Bye.
Bye.